Hello and welcome to the Corvus podcast focused on tabletop gaming. And today I'm joined by...
Hi, I'm Nathen Flannery. I'm a lecturer of games programming, indie game developer, and obviously a board game enthusiast.
Brilliant. So today with Nathen, we've got plenty to cover. So I think we should start by talking about how we got into this hobby.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's a good discussion about gateway games because there's lots of different ways to get into board games. Me personally, I got into. Well, obviously, we all play board games when we're smaller. I guess like play like Monopoly, Cluedo, board, card games with your nan at Christmas. But like in terms of like getting into modern board games, like the kind of ones we see here, I think Arkham Horror Second Edition was my main entry point, and that kind of really did shape, I think, my interest in games being quite thematic. So even now, like I need a good theme to get me into a game, because the only reason I picked up Arkham Horror originally is because of it being like a Lovecraftian Cthulhu, kind of narrative-driven adventure game. So that game really got me into like the idea of board games can be more than just like roll the dice and move and pay for money to someone for a caravan or something.
The narrative aspect.
Yeah. Even now, like if someone says like I really recommend this game, I'll be like, "What's this game about?" They're like, "Oh, it's about farming in medieval Europe." I'm like, "Okay, that'd be a damn good game for that theme to carry." How about you?
So I started when I was probably about 8ish, when I was at my best mate's house and I walk into his brother's room and he's there painting a little goblin from Warhammer Fantasy.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And I was like, what's that? And I was at the age when I was kind of phasing out of Lego. And I went down to the Games Workshop with my mate and his brother and was hooked on the kind of wargaming aspect since, really. And then that introduced me into role-playing games. And from then on, like since I've joined the university, definitely more tabletop traditional games. And it's been great fun.
I mean, Warhammer's obviously a really good gateway as well, especially for the love of miniatures. Like I used to, I was introduced into miniatures gaming through Warhammer. It would be in second edition as well. It's a long time ago, but like even now, like when you crack open a game, board game, miniatures game, it's got really well designed miniatures. It's good, again, good for theme.
I think that's it. The going from seeing like Magic and games like that didn't really interest me as much, purely because, again, like you said, the narrative. Whereas seeing your army, you can really forge a narrative, name your characters, and the funny moments that happen from those, whether that's a single Space Marine captain in a game that goes and slays a demon prince when he's on one wound or something.
It's always good to break these games, man. Proper cheese.
Yeah. So are there any particular funny moments that have stood out for you?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Because tabletop gaming is so social. It's not like let's say video games where you can just sort of sit in a single player game. I mean, you can solo a game, I guess, but like a lot of the funniest moments of tabletop gaming have been because of other people.
Yeah.
So there's a couple that spring to mind. One is there's a game called Werewolf. It's like a social game for anyone who doesn't know what it is. And there's a version of it called Ultimate Werewolf.
Okay.
And that's like, if you don't know what werewolf is, it involves there being villagers and werewolves, and there's like a night and day cycle, and the werewolves have to kill villagers at night when everyone's got their eyes closed, and the villagers have to talk during the day and decide on someone to lynch, and hopefully it's the werewolves, and the villagers end up killing the werewolves, not the villagers. But the Ultimate Werewolf kind of adds a few more roles in. And my wife is like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, but she just happened in one game to be a werewolf. And somehow, because she's nice, she got voted in as the mayor, which means that she had like massive amounts of political voting power.
Yeah.
And she just managed to pull the wool over everyone's eyes and get so many people lynched that were villagers. And I was just there screaming, just like, the werewolf, the mayor is a werewolf. You know what I mean? And no one would listen to me. And then
like a tinfoiled hat nut job.
Yeah. It's old Dave in the shed.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically like, and we had the chorus of ghosts going. So when people died, they could become a ghost if they were a villager.
Right.
And then you could write down one letter per night per ghost and like make clues. And there's stuff like my wife was wearing a red jumper and it was like red, and then she's wearing glasses and it was glasses, and like I was like, "Come on, dudes! Like, look at the clues going on here." And everyone was like, "No, it couldn't be Jen. She's too nice." So she just murdered everyone.
The mayor. Yeah,
so frustrating. The other one that popped in my head actually was a Game of Thrones board game.
Oh, nice.
Slightly different reason, man. Again, the Game of Thrones board game is one of those games where it tears apart families and friendships. It's just so cutthroat.
Yeah,
yeah, it's such a nasty game. But what I really like about Game of Thrones was the meta game that started about a week before each game. So we would like
Okay.
organize a game, and then before we even got to the table, it could be a week before that, and my friends would be like, "So when we play that game on Saturday, you could ally with so and so, but you could ally with me, and if you ally with me, like maybe I'll sweeten the deal
Right.
with this." It's just like I loved that kind of before you've even got to the game, it's become backstabby and very
That's
Games of Thrones.
fantastic. Yeah, it's perfect for the Game of Thrones. You know, when you play the Game of Thrones, you die.
Yeah, you live or you die, man.
Yeah, it's very very on brand for the. Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's what's great about board gaming in
Mm,
particular, and I'd say more so than other forms of entertainment
yeah.
because it's a great hub to kind of bring people together
Mm,
to again, like you said, the Game of Thrones one can tear tear family and friends apart,
yeah, yeah.
but that's the fun of it, really. For something like that, you want a Game of Thrones game to be the Game of
Absolutely.
Thrones, don't you? You
Yeah.
want people to be a bit salty that their house came crashing down
Bit of
during
role
the
playing
game.
in the game, sit around a table, cloaks and daggers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, putting a bit of poison in their mead and stuff like that. It's brilliant. Yeah, and there's so many different kind of highlights, like with the Tabletop Society that
Mm.
we're both in, and you're kind of the founder of at university. Um, like the game of Nemesis we played
Oh, Nemesis, amazing game.
about 3 or 4 weeks ago,
Mm.
where Ryan is this corpo rat who's been secretly against us the entire game,
Yeah.
and he's trying to kill me at the very end, only to be ripped apart by the Queen. You accidentally blow up the facility
Oh,
in the
man,
process,
yeah.
and it's just this bedlam that has been brewing for about 2 3 hours, and it finally culminates in this massive explosion. Ryan being outed as a traitor, and it's just a lot of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, any game. I love games with traitor mechanics,
Mm.
especially like so the cooperative or semi-cooperative games. I guess that someone at a table potentially is a dirty rat.
Yeah. Well, it adds that extra layer that
Mm,
throughout the game you're not certain who you're supposed to ally with,
yeah, yeah,
if your friends are actually your friends or if they're about to stab you in the back. You know, like you
yeah.
said, cloak and dagger.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like
It's
board games, obviously mechanical. They have like mechanisms, like video games do. They have like game mechanics, and they have sort of different. I guess like you have like deck building, and you have work
mm,
placement. You have certain things that repeat in games design. But really, like I think what makes board games so much fun is the social aspect, isn't it?
yeah.
And those kind of trade mechanics and things like that, like a negotiation and co-op, they're really playing to the strength of board games because you're sat opposite
Mm.
somebody. You know what I mean? Like it's not like you're going to headset across the internet.
No, yeah, that's beautifully put, really, because you're face to face
Yeah.
BSing somebody.
Yeah, you got the body language. You're
Yeah.
like, looks like he's saying the truth, but I know he's lying, man.
But yeah, he's got his fingers crossed under under the
Yeah.
table, you know.
He's looking at that card that potentially is like some kind of dagger or something.
Yeah, and like a game like Twilight Imperium
Oh,
was
great game.
a brilliant cloak and dagger
Mm,
game
mm,
because
mm.
you don't know who to trust. Again, like Ryan, common theme,
Yeah, yeah.
was sat
Never
there the
trust anyone
entire
called Ryan.
game.
Anyone
Yeah,
listens to
never trust a Ryan. He was waiting the entire game to pull out this kind of teleportation strategy, and then he just went from being like 3 points behind to joint winning,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was this long haul game that he was playing where he was being nice to everyone throughout, and then he just declares war on everyone
What
at
a
the very
snake.
end,
Playing
and
the
it's
long game. Yeah.
yeah. Um, Bringing up Twilight Imperium, I know that's one of your
Mm,
top
mm.
picks. So, can I get a top three favorite games from you?
Yeah, I mean, well, since you started with Twilight Imperium, I'll put that on the list straight away. I mean, like,
Okay.
it's Twilight Imperium. It's quite a hard game to recommend, actually. Like, in terms of recommending games for people to pick up,
Mhm.
I think that everyone should try Twilight Imperium at least once. You might not like it. I
Yeah.
mean, it might be just too long. It might be too complicated a rule set, or
Mm.
might not get the right mix of people. But like, I think everyone should at least try it because that game is very unique in the narrative and the epic scale of it.
Mm.
It's my favorite game personally. Again, like we talk about games, gateway games. Arkham Horror Second Edition was my gateway, but then it was Twilight Imperium Third Edition that really got me hooked on board games because just the scope of it and the narrative that years later you're still telling. I remember there was a game we had, Twilight Imperium. It was the third edition, but it was like a Cold War where like we were literally building massive armies on each other's borders, and no one fired a single shot in that entire game. It was just so crazy.
That's
Everyone's just so
fantastic.
scared. It's like, man, if I fire my war son, it's gonna blow my husband. Uh, so yeah, but that kind of lives in your memory. So yeah,
Mm.
like, that would be one I would recommend to try.
Yeah.
I'm not sure investing
Uh,
100 quid.
I'd have to say it's not a beginner's
And
game.
it's not a beginner's game.
It could be if you've got, a group of people who are already into it and
Mm.
it's, you're fairly early in, but you've got somebody to or a group of
The
people to
teach, yeah.
yeah, to teach you the game. Fantastic game, Twilight Imperium. I've only played it the once with yourself, and
Mm.
and it was a lot of fun. The narrative was brilliant. Like, it's
Yeah,
writing a story as you go.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's
We'll play it again, Ollie, don't worry.
yeah. I think our game was about 12 hours, so
It was 12
it
hours long,
was
yeah. It was the max length, I think, for that
yeah.
game.
It was definitely time commitment, but it was worth it. It was
Yeah, it goes quick as well, those 12 hours
oh,
disappear.
blinked and it was like
Yeah.
7 o'clock at night, and we're like, whoa, we've been playing this for 9 hours at that point.
In terms of other game, I mean, these are more sensible recommendations now. So,
Mhm.
well, first of all, I'll go through like a kind of average size game. I think, especially because it's quite topical right now. High up on the Board Game Geek. If you've never been on Board Game Geek, by the way, it's a really good website to kind of rank games and get reviews and to really be part of the board game community. And they have like a top 100. They have like a top 1,000 thing, but like the top 100 list. Very high up is Dune Imperium. It is a great game,
Mm.
regardless of like theme. But Dune Imperium Uprising, especially as a version of it that released recently to coincide with Dune Part Two.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big Dune fan, but like, yeah, while it's topical, I mean, listeners, if they're looking for something like a board game that's got a really juicy theme, but
Mm.
mechanically as well, it's a real good combination of lots of classic Euro game mechanisms. So it's got deck
Nice.
building. So you build this deck out that becomes quite a thematic kind of deck of cards that you use to do actions and stuff. It's got worker placement, so you place agents out on a board and you kind of steer Arrakis
Mm.
and the different factions involved in how you want them. And it's even got like I use air quotes here, like combat. It's actually a bidding mechanism, like a European Euro game bidding mechanism, but disguised as combat. But the game is really tightly designed. It's
Mm.
such a good design, and like Twilight Imperium, it isn't a point salad. Like you just don't get points thrown at you for no reason. It's
Yeah.
it's 10 points to win the game, like TI, but very very quick. It's about hour and a half, 2 hours play, which doesn't sound very quick for people that maybe don't play board games a lot, but that is quite quick for
Yeah,
quite a rich
especially
board
for
game.
that style of
Yeah.
game. It's and it seemed to have such a great amount of depth
Mm.
to Dune. I haven't played Dune Imperium yet, but you were telling me about like the Bene Gesserit system, how you can infiltrate
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
playing as Bene
Yeah, you
Gesserits,
got
and
spies and you've got, you can use the voice on people.
yeah,
It's great. It's a really good game.
which I think it's great. And with all the Dune hype at the moment, it's
Yeah, go and get it. It's a good game.
yeah.
The other one I'm gonna recommend is actually a really small game. So,
Mm.
sometimes I think it's good to have some filler games. You don't always wanna crack out a game that takes hours.
Yeah.
The best small game for me is a game called Love Letter, by a Japanese game designer I really like called Seiji Kanai. I've got lots of his games. But Love Letter at this point is quite a classic as well. Like I think it's quite high up on BGG.
Mm.
It's just 16 cards, which is why I think it's just such amazing design. It's a deck of 16 cards that you then distribute between all the players.
Yeah.
Well, kind of you give each player one card and then you have to stack. And then you have to, through social deduction, through some clever mechanics, you kind of work out well, you're trying to eliminate each other. You're trying to basically get as close to the princess as possible to deliver her a love letter.
Right.
And the theme is really weird, but like it's such clever design. It takes very little amount of time to play. And I just can't believe that so much game comes out of just 16 pieces of card. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So I would really recommend that. It's really cheap as well. You can get that game for like 10 quid. And you'll play it for like hours over and over and over again, especially in a party. The rules are like effortless to teach.
That's brilliant. And having that replayability, especially with
Mm.
card games, it's good fun.
Yeah, yeah.
That goes on to one of mine on my list, oddly enough, kind of parallels but slightly different. Exploding Kittens.
That game's a
It's
successful Kickstarter kind of story, isn't it?
yeah, I think it was one of the most,
Mm.
if not the most successful board game at the time. Well,
Yeah.
tabletop game. It's not really a board game; it's a card game. But it's just so much fun to just pull out. Takes 5 minutes to learn the rules. It's just about exploding kittens, and it's
It's poor kittens.
yeah, the art's fun, the game's fun.
Mm.
It's almost similar to an Uno kind of, not gameplay, but the franticness of it
Yeah.
towards some parts of the game.
Easy to pull
And
out, easy to teach.
exactly, and also the cards are really nice quality.
Makes a
Um,
difference. A good artwork.
it
Yeah.
does, yeah, and they feel nice in your hands, which is again,
That's
it's
cool.
quite nice to
Yeah.
have. But yeah, I again going off the themes of like the tabletop society that we've built within SAE. We play quite a bit of Oath, and
Oh,
that's a
it's such a
game
good game. Yeah.
that's so easy to recommend because it's a perfect game to kind of I would say bring a beginner into the more intermediate
Yeah, yeah.
um, games within like the scale of tabletop gaming because it's got great depth
Mm.
and maybe takes half an hour to an hour to learn comfortably how to play. I'd
Yeah, I
say
guess so, yeah. Yeah.
maybe like one or two YouTube videos beforehand helps,
Yeah, it would help.
and but you can pick it up as you play. I
Mm.
think it's a game that the more you play, the better you get, and you can have really funny moments throughout, really narrative, creative
Yeah,
moments.
absolutely.
It's
It's like a narrative, sort of almost not like role playing game, but it's got
mm,
that kind of. You kind of do play a role, don't you? Like when we play as the
definitely, yeah,
Chancellor,
yeah.
everyone has to kind of take him down.
It is very much a role playing game, I'd say,
Hmm.
just not character
Yeah,
based.
yeah.
The characters you play as don't matter; they're just artwork
They're
on a
just
piece
a
of paper.
facade, aren't they, for your kind of
Mm,
force, I guess, or
yeah,
something.
but yet you kind of become attached to the
Mhm.
color you're playing as.
Absolutely, yeah.
As soon as I became chancellor, I did a little drawing in Photoshop of my character holding this banner, like the emperor's banner, like pointing over his subjects.
Oh
Which
yeah, I love the little booklet you can get as well. Then you can
mm,
sketch in there like each game and stuff, and carry it across from game to game.
and Scott's artwork for that has been incredible. Like
Yeah, yeah.
really, really fun, and again builds that narrative from something that you wouldn't expect to have such a
Oh yeah, yeah.
like a great voice for storytelling. Um, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great game. It's a really good game.
mm,
That'd be that game. I mean, it's quite a new one for me, I guess, but like it's entered into my top 10 games
mm,
of all time. I love Oath so much. I think every time I play it, I'm just like, man, it's such good game design.
yeah.
I wish I was as good a game designer as Cole Worley.
Definitely. And I think it goes for that again, beginner to intermediate
Yeah.
players and can be enjoyed by anyone. People have been playing games for 1 month, one
Yeah.
day to people who've been playing for a decade.
Yeah. And the artwork as well, I think,
It's
is quite inviting. It's got
definitely
that really bright, it's not like some games you get a bit edgy, a bit dark or
mm,
something, or a bit gory, but Oath is
yeah.
just so charming.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful like high fantasy
Mm.
esque but really quirky and a bit weird, which is
Yeah,
which
which
is
I
fun.
like. Yeah, it's great.
Characters have too many arms or not enough arms.
Or made out of a cloud.
Yeah, made out of a cloud or just a hood with eyes. Like it's very yeah, it's a very appealing game.
It's a good choice. Yeah,
So
it's a really good choice.
so yeah, so if you were to recommend, we've been talking a little bit about beginner games, intermediate games, like different scales.
Mm.
If anyone's listening who hasn't really been exposed to tabletop gaming, how would you recommend somebody gets into the hobby themselves?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, especially because, again, everyone should get into the hobby. It's a great hobby, but
Mm,
like, it has got more expensive over time. So I
yeah.
think, yeah, it's hard to just go drop 100 quid on Twilight Imperium or something.
Mm,
I would actually recommend. There's a couple of things. First of all, obviously, I think gaming in real life, tabletop gaming in real life, is the best solution. So my immediate thought is to try and find a board game group. There are lots of ways to find a board game group. Obviously, check your local game stores. So lots of local game, sort of shops, especially they're like dedicated ones, they're like board game shops, tabletop
mm,
role playing shops, and everything. They usually have like tables you can hire out, or they have like clubs on a certain nights that have certain themes. So there might be like a board game night one night, and there might be a tabletop role playing night another night, a war game another night. So go and have a look at your local shops and see what's there. The Meetup app is actually really good as well. It's an app called Meetup. If you've never used it, honestly, just go on Meetup, just type in board games or tabletop games. It pops up with so many in your local area.
mm,
And you can just, usually they're either free or very inexpensive, like a couple of quid. Go and meet people. They're, usually people bring games. Um, so they've been really, really good, like just to do that. Um, and board game cafes. There's loads
mm,
of board game cafes all over the place now. Obviously, locally to us, we've got an excellent one, the Dicebox. But there's one in Birmingham, there's ones in London, there's ones in New York. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
there's wherever sort of large city or towns, there's usually one or two board game cafes, and they're a great way to go and just again get a nice coffee, cake, and learn a
yeah.
board game. They usually teach you the rules as well, so it's like one of those things where if you're kind of not too like board game rule literate, you know what I mean? Like it takes a while to learn rules from reading a rule book or whatever, or you have to watch YouTube videos quite a lot. Having someone just explain the rules to you is so much like time saving.
Yeah, and having somebody to, if you get a bit stuck,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
say, "Oh, how would you resolve this interaction?" And then they can give you either the rules answer or the cool answer.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
they'll say,
On the spot as well, right? You
"Yeah,
have to go on your phone and just be like, oh, come on,
yeah,"
try and find
rather
an FAQ somewhere.
because that is one thing that can be a bit of a taxing experience
Mm,
is some of the rules engagements where maybe they haven't been implemented correctly, or there's a
Yeah.
bit of a clash with some of the rules, it can be a bit awkward trying to.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
want to do my thing, you want to do your thing. How do we meet in the middle?
Yeah. And there's
And
sometimes rules are written in a I mean, obviously, like, rule books are so hard to write in the first place.
yeah,
That it's a skill, I think. And then some rule books are written by games designers that perhaps aren't as skilled at writing rules, so you get some ambiguities, and you're kind of
mm,
there going, "Is this the way it's meant to be played?"
yeah,
Like so it's good to have someone that's maybe read the Board Game Geek forums or read the FAQs on the website that knows the answer. They can be like, "Yeah, it's meant to be like
mm, definitely. And just being able to call them over and be like, how do we figure this out? And they're
this."
like, that way. And
And
it's
while you're here, some chips.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
The other way I'd recommend, but this isn't. I don't think this wouldn't be my number one recommendation, but like it's a way to get into
Mm,
board games. There's lots of ways to play board games online now, asynchronously. So through I think it's Steam, you can download Tabletop Simulator,
mm,
so TTS. That is like a free piece of software which has got loads of mods for different games. Especially the one point I would recommend TTS is if it's a game that's going through something like crowdfunding, like Kickstarter,
right.
because rather than just blind kickstarting something, a lot of time you can play that game on TTS as a kind of like games testing, and you can see whether you like it or not, whether you want to put money down.
That's really good advice, actually.
It's
Yeah.
it's really good for making sure you don't back things
Mm,
that when you get them, you're like, okay, it looked nice, had loads of good miniatures,
yeah.
but this is a terrible game. I've done that before.
Yeah.
The other one is Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena has gotten much bigger over the last few years. Again, it's an online asynchronous way of playing board games.
Mm,
So they've recently added quite a lot of stuff to it. So Twilight Imperium we mentioned before, that's got a Board Game Arena mod, for instance. So if you don't want to play a 12-hour game in real life, you could go on the evening, do a couple of hours, and then it will save your game state, and you can come in like a few days later.
right, okay.
So it's they are good ways to learn board games. They are
Mm.
really inexpensive as well. Like, but obviously you do miss out on the experience of
Yeah,
being
the
in the room.
experience of being there. I think Tabletop Simulator, like you mentioned, um, it's fantastic
Mm,
as a way to test stuff out. Like you mentioned,
yeah,
I've done it a couple of times with Warhammer models where I'll just put them in
have a little look at 'em.
and have a look at them in a 3D space
Yeah, yeah,
and see how they'd interact with terrain. And s- using it that way is also quite good
yeah, yeah,
because
definitely.
miniatures are expensive.
Yeah, anything that's got a
Um,
huge cost associated to it, like this digital implementation, can be a lifesaver for kind of gauging whether you want to actually put the money down because
mm,
funds are tight. Yeah,
yeah, and it is an investment. It's something that a lot of the times they retain their value or sometimes go up if you're quite good at painting on the miniature
yeah,
side.
absolutely. Yeah,
But still, it is you're forking out a lot of money, aren't you?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
um, another thing I found quite useful whilst getting into this hobby was oddly enough YouTubers
Oh
who
yeah,
are within the
it's a good shout.
sphere.
Yeah,
Their Discord groups are fantastic. A lot of them aren't hidden behind paywalls like memberships and stuff. They're
yeah.
just free to anyone, and it's a load of people with the same interests as you. You don't even need to talk really in there. You can just see what people are
Just got to
saying,
lurk in there. Yeah.
kind of lurk, see if there's somebody who
Mm,
maybe is local to you. Then you can ask, "Oh, are you free for a game?"
yeah,
And
it's a really good shout. Yeah.
yeah, and like you mentioned with the local hobby shops,
Mm.
they all have Discord groups. They all
Yeah, yeah,
have
yeah,
groups of some description, don't they?
yeah, yeah.
And
Also, as well, you mentioned YouTube as well. Like I use YouTube loads, just for getting an idea what a game is like.
mm,
Because again, you can look at a still picture and you can read rules, but sometimes I don't know. Maybe it's a me thing. Sometimes I read the rules and I look at the photography and I'm just like, I don't see how that actually works
mm,
mechanically on the table. Then I go and watch like a little YouTube review or like a let's play or something. And
yeah,
I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Ah, I was being dumb. You mean like
yeah.
it's just having that like moving pieces going on.
But where it's not always clear, and like you said, seeing other people
Mm.
interact with those rules, it's a really good way to hear other people's opinions on
Yeah, yeah.
how to interact with it, or seeing the correct way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I obviously we're all used to watching Let's Plays on video
Mm,
games, but there's been quite a few Let's Plays of board games that I've watched.
yeah,
I really recommend if anyone wants to jump on a good channel, Shut Up and Sit Down is a great channel for just watching some really entertaining Let's Plays. They do reviews and stuff as well. They're a great channel.
mm,
But yeah, Shut Up and Sit Downs. That is like their Twilight Imperium, for instance. Let's Play, which I did watch the entirety of. By the way, it's like 10 hours worth on YouTube. I'm quite sad, but it was really entertaining. It was really, really good. And I've watched playthroughs of like Oath as well,
mm,
Nemesis. Just loads of really good stuff on YouTube to give you an idea what the game is like. And sometimes it is just quite fun to watch.
mm,
Like I said, like I think board games, because they are uniquely in real life social
yeah,
experiences. It's different than watching a Let's Play of a video game because you watch Let's Play of a board game, you're watching almost like a social experiment happen.
definitely, and you almost sat in the room with them.
Yeah,
It can
yeah.
feel like if it's done correctly, if it's done well, you can feel a part of the game, which is I really like it, especially like role playing games, one offs.
Mm.
There's a channel called Mystery Quest that's
Oh, cool.
hilarious. They do it'll be like 4 1 hour episodes.
Yeah.
They'll be based in like the Cthulhu role playing
Oh,
game,
awesome. Yeah.
or what's the other one? There's like a honey bear quest one they did recently that was hilarious, and it's just great to see a group of mates having a laugh, really, and
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Especially they're quite personable sort of presenters and streamers.
exactly. When they're a
Yeah.
bit larger than life, they can really
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
good at putting on accents. They get into the characters. It's
The only bad thing is if you watch a stream and someone's getting a rule wrong, and I can see my eye twitching. Like, if I was in the room, man.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Thank you very much for being on this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.